Hey there, welcome to the last video in the unit circle unit. Hey, that's funny, the unit circle unit, no pun intended. And what we're going to do today is we're going to calculate trigonometric values of coterminal angles with unit circle angles. So kind of combining that coterminal angles lesson, like how do I know where a angle ends in the first revolution, and then what's the trigonometric value of that. So it's kind of multi-steps, and speaking of multi-steps, here are our kind of step process that we're going to follow for this value. So the steps to follow, step 1 is find the coterminal angle in the interval 0 to 2 pi. So where does this angle end? Because where it ends, it's going to share the same exact coordinate location as the angle in the first revolution, which we already did a lesson, right? Finding the values of those angles in the first revolution. So if we can do that, then it should be easy. Step 2, determine which quadrant the angle in step 1 terminates. So like, where is it? Okay, and then the sign of that trigonometric ratio, right? Because if it's in quadrants 1 and 2, I know that sign's positive. Okay, if it's quadrants 3 and 4, I know that sign is negative, right? Because sine is the y value. And same for cosine, right? You need to know where is it positive, where is it negative. Now, if your angle is a quadrantal, what you're going to do is just go straight to step 4. You don't need to know what the reference angle is, and you can just go ahead and find that trig value. Step 3, so now you know like where it terminates. You need to know, okay, what is my reference angle? What angle am I working with? Okay, and then now that you know that, you can apply either the hand trick, or if you're really kind of dependent upon your unit circle, you can look at that and use your knowledge, right, that cosine of theta is x, sine of theta is y. We're also going to be utilizing our reciprocal identities and quotient identities. If you need a refresher, they are here. Okay, so just remember that tan of theta is sine over cosine, cotan of theta is cosine over sine. Cosecant of theta is 1 over sine, right? It's reciprocal, and the reciprocal of secant theta is cosine theta. So that's 1 over cosine. Okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And here is our first example. We're asked to use the unit circle and trigonometric identities to find each exact value. All right, so step 1, and I'm going to kind of follow what's been outlined for us in our notes, is I need to know where is 8 pi, or what's coterminal with it. So what I do is I'm just going to subtract 2 pi, which what we did in our last lesson, right, is I take 8 pi over 3 and I subtract 6 pi over 3. I need to convert that. So this is coterminal with 2 pi over 3. All right, now what you need to do, step 2, what they kind of outlined for us is where does this terminate? Where does 2 pi over 3 terminate? And kind of like what I tell my students is I always use this marker of pi and 2 pi as references. So pi in this case is going to be 3 pi over 3. So notice how that's 1 pi third backwards, right? This terminates in quadrant 2. So this is quadrant 2. And what we need to know here is that my y values, sine is positive. Lost my place. Here, sine is positive. Now, another cool way that you can figure this out too, I mean, other than knowing that sine is your y values, is this little acronym. Okay, I'm going to go over here to a sidebar really quickly, and I want to teach you guys about all students take calculus, and it's an acronym to represent where everything is positive. In quadrant 1, everything's positive. Always, 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 always positive, right? And that stands for all. So all. Okay, in quadrant 2, only sine is positive, all students. So S represents sine is quadrant 2, and that's positive. In quadrant 3, you would say that everything's negative except tangent is sine over cosine. So negative over negative gives you a positive. So tangent is actually positive in quadrant 3. Okay, and then in quadrant 4 over here, you have C, cosine is positive in quadrant 4. Your sine's negative, right? So this acronym, all students take calculus. right, represents how I can kind of remember, okay, what quadrant is everything positive, right? Okay, so A stands for all, S, this is sine, is positive here, T, that's tangent, and C, cosine. All students take calculus. Okay, that tells you where everything's positive. All right, next, now that I know that it's positive, I need to know, like, what is the reference angle for the angle I'm working with? And what I just say is look at the denominator. The denominator is a 3. So this is a pi third reference angle. I mean, I don't think it can be any easier than that. Step 4. Okay, so here we go. I need to calculate, okay, what is sine? What is sine of 8 pi thirds? Well, it's going to be equal to sine of 2 pi thirds. Okay, which if I'm calculating this, I know that sine of, again, it's a pi third angle, so I'm going to use my hand trick. Okay, pi thirds, sine, it's the y value, right? And that is root 3 over 2. And there you have it. That's how you find the trig values of coterminal angles. Let's look at another example. Okay, I have cosine of negative 11 pi over 4. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 8 pi over 4, right? That's essentially 2 pi. And that gives me negative 3 pi over 4. Hey, I'm still not in the first revolution, so I'm going to add another 2 pi, which is 8 pi over 4, and I get 5 pi over 4. Okay, so I know that that is a coterminal angle, and I will ask myself in step 2, okay, where does this terminate? Where does it terminate? So again, 5 pi over 4, I hope you would know, right, if this is right here at pi, this is 4 pi over 4. So 5 pi over 4 is just 1 pi fourth forward. So we're in quadrant 3. Okay, quadrant 3. And in this one, right, cosine is negative. Okay, so I know my value is going to be negative. All right, step 3, what's our reference angle? Well, what's the denominator? Pi over 4. Super, super simple. Okay, and then step 4 here, we're actually going to go ahead and calculate this. Okay, so cosine of negative 11 pi over 4 is equivalent to cosine of 5 pi over 4. All right, it's a pi fourth angle, so I'm going to use my unit circle hand, put down my pi fourth angle. Cosine, that's your x value, right? X. Okay, and it's root 2 over 2. And we know that root 2 over 2 is negative in this quadrant. I almost said positive. It's negative. Quadrant 3. What's the only thing positive in quadrant 3? Tangent, right? Quadrant 3 right here. Okay. All right, here's some practice problems. Please pause the video. I want you to go ahead and try this. Do it. Did you pause it? Good. Here's the answer. Okay. It is 1/2. So 11 pi over 6, that's coterminal with pi 6. Man, that's easy. That's the first quadrant. Everything positive. Always positive. And you get 1/2. All right. Here's another example. Ooh, cosine of 5 pi. Please pause. Try. All right. And here is your solution. And it is coterminal with pi. So this is a quadrantal angle. So you don't have to do step 3, right? Because I mean, it's a quadrantal. So cosine of pi, that's the x value, -1. Simple. Simple, simple, simple. Okay, well, what about the tricky ones? Well, I don't even know if they're tricky, but we'll have some secants, some cotangents, stuff like that. All right, so here I have secant of 7 pi over 2, and what I'm going to do is step 1, I'm going to take 7 pi over 2, and I need to know, okay, what is this equivalent to? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2 pi, which again is 4 pi over 2. Okay, so I get 3 pi over 2. All right, so step 2, this is a quadrantal. Quadrantal. Am I spelling that right? I am. Whew. I always get so nervous. I didn't take many English classes in college. It was always like math, 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 math. Theory of math. Real analysis. Man. Okay, quadrantal. I can skip step 3. And then step 4. Step 4, I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so secant of 7 pi halves. Okay, so I know that this is equivalent to secant of 3 pi halves. Okay, what now, Schwarberg? Well, I know that secant is 1 over cosine. All right, what is cosine of 3 pi over 2? Okay, and that is at the south pole. That's the x value at the south pole, and that is going to be 0, 1 over 0, which is undefined. Undefined. All right, next example. Here we go. Cotangent of 11 pi over 6. Okay, so again, step 1. I need to find my coterminal angle, negative 7 pi over 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 pi, 12 pi over 6. This is 5 pi over 6. Okay, now what I need to go ahead and do is I need to determine, okay, where does that terminate? And it should terminate. Hopefully you know that that's almost 6 pi over 6. That's pi 6 backwards, right, from pi. So this is quadrant 2. Sorry, I had like a brain freeze there. Okay, and in quadrant 2, cotan theta is negative. Okay. Now, how do you know this? Again, so how do I know this? Well, I have my quadrants. A, everything's positive here, all students. Only sine is positive in quadrant 2, right? So that means that sine and cosecant, right, would be positive there. Tangent is positive in quadrant 3, and cosine is positive in quadrant 2. So in quadrant 3 and 1 and 3, right, tangent and cotangent will be positive. That's because cotan, sine over cosine, okay? So I know that. Step 3, I need my reference angle, which we know the reference angle is going to be pi over 6, right, because of the denominator. And then we are ready to go ahead and do step 4. Okay, so step 4, I have cotangent of negative 7 pi over 6, okay, which is equal to cotangent of 5 pi over 6, okay, which cotangent is cosine of 5 pi 6 over sine of 5 pi over 6, okay, and here's where you have to go ahead and put in your values, okay, so I have a pi over 6 angle, and I know that cosine is root 3 over 2, okay, but it's going to be negative because it's in quadrant 2, right? So cosine is negative, and my sine value is positive. So sine is positive, right? So if I go ahead and calculate this, I have, whoa, keep hitting the side over here, jumping pages. So I have negative root 3 over 2 times 2 over 1, which these cancel, and we get negative square root of 3. Okay, and that is it. All right, here are some practice problems. Please go ahead, pause the videos, and try these. All right, here is the solution. Should have gotten negative root 2. Okay, and that's because it's coterminal with 7 pi over 4, which is in quadrant 4, and cosecant is negative because sine is negative there. All right, here's the last example. Please pause the video and try this one. All right, and hopefully you paused it. Here's the solution. Okay, and that is it. All right, that's it. That's the unit circle unit. Catch you next time. Peace.